Hello, and welcome to Beyond Biglaw, Money Management for Lawyers.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Beyond Biglaw with Jessica Medina, Esquire. I'm Matt Skye. Jessica is a former lawyer and accredited financial counselor. She transitioned from a successful law career to financial coaching to help people achieve financial stability. Join us as we explore how she uses her legal background and financial experience to guide attorneys toward their true passions. Jessica, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So let's get into cash flow management for lawyers. What are the common challenges and how can they manage their day-to-day finances better?
Oh, Matt, I love talking about cash flow management. Get ready. This was something that I really struggled with as an attorney. I had never been taught how to think about the money coming in and the money going out. Thankfully, when I was at my firm, I made enough to make up for those mistakes that I was making all along the way. That being said, when my margin of error went down to zero after taking a 50% pay cut, I got really good at managing the money going in and the money going out. And so what I see with a lot of my clients is they are trying to manage way too much information. They are trying to look at their entire financial picture every week or every month. They're dragging their partner to sit down and look at it with them. And it's so much information that they can't figure out where the issue is. And what I try to work with my clients on is getting them to start paying attention to the essentials. There's a lot of decisions that people make with respect to cash flow management that you don't have to make twice. If you've decided you like your house, your mortgage isn't going to change. If you've decided you like your daycare provider, you're not switching. That bill is going to be the same thing every month. Let's remove all of the decisions that you have already made in your life from your view so you can focus on where your actual activity is, on where the variability exists. Because let's be honest, it's generally not the monthly daycare bill that is crushing people. That's not the hot zone of spending that we have, even though it's a really, really big bill. It's all the other things that are happening over the course of the day, over the course of the week, especially when you're a little stressed out and you can't remember how much money you've spent earlier in the week. You know, our financial system has really removed a lot of the pain that is supposed to go along with spending. And so it's very easy to lose track of what's going on until you get that bill at the end of the month and you're wondering, what the heck did I buy? This is not my mortgage on here. These are other expenses. So a lot of what I end up doing is helping my clients separate the decisions they've already made from the decisions that are being made on an ongoing basis so they can focus their attention there and not feel so overwhelmed with all of the different pieces of information. They can just make good financial decisions on the information that's necessary.
Yeah, I always think my credit card was stolen every month when I look at my bills.
What is that?
Yeah, that's not possible. But how do you help attorneys balance immediate financial needs with their long-term goals like retirement and planning investments and such?
So I think for attorneys, right, and anyone, we want to be paying attention to how much of our resources are going toward just our present day existence versus how much of our resources are going toward our future existence. And for better or worse, we live in a country where we are responsible for our future existence. So we have to start thinking about it early, right? If we want to try to make any headway. And so when I'm working with my clients, I don't give investment advice. I won't be able to help them rebalance their 401k or pick what funds, might be a good fit for them given, their age and when they anticipate retirement to happen. But what I can do for them is give them a glimpse into how much of their money is going to their present life versus how much they could have going toward their future life. And so we do that analysis to get a sense of, are we really putting all of our eggs in the today basket such that there's nothing left for tomorrow? And we start to have conversations about what would be comfortable for them in the confines of a lifestyle that they probably have a lot of required expenses for. I never tell my clients that they have to give up their house cleaner. That was one of my non-negotiables when I was practicing, but they might need to give up something else if they want to be able to make, some headway on longer term financial goals. So we have those conversations at a very granular level. That's one of the benefits of working one-on-one with your own accredited financial counselor. I don't have any formulas. I don't have any templates for what your life should look like. It really will depend on your own values, on what's important to you, and what your future retirement might look like. If you want a yacht around the world 24/7, that's going to look different than if you want to have have a little bungalow in a rural seaside town, maybe outside of the United States. And so, thinking about long-term, what will your needs be? We can start doing some of that work to start preparing for it.
So what are some strategies you recommend? Because like you said, there is this, it's not a one size fits all, and different people maybe need to make different sacrifices. How do you determine that?
So I think there is a lot of bang for your buck in what we call fixed expenses, right? So a lot of times people are looking at those bills that come in every month, and because the bill looks familiar and it's the same amount every month, well, we call it fixed, but it shouldn't be fixed in your mind. And I have a conversation with my clients about, are there any of these monthly recurring expenses that we could adjust either by reducing them, maybe even pausing them, or stopping them altogether? Because if you can take something like that off of your balance sheet, that's going to show up as surplus every month forward. That's where you get the real bang for your buck in terms of doing this very detailed analytical work of where your money is going. So I do this work with my clients, and we're looking at things like health insurance premiums. Are you in the Cadillac plan, but you could be in, the silver plan as opposed to, the best plan available and still be served by the same doctors, still have the same coverage and just pay less in premiums? That can be a huge boon. Are you paying for multiple car insurance policies when you could combine and get some discounts and maybe pay a little bit less every month, but still have the same level of coverage and the same protections, right? What we're looking for is there a way that we can reduce this fixed expense and still get the same level of service? And I tell you, one of the benefits of working with attorneys is they're pretty good at negotiating stuff. They're pretty good at researching. So when I give them an assignment, they're just like, oh, I will find another cable provider, or my cable provider will give me this deal that somebody else is offering, right? Like, this is the kind of work that they need to do, but they only need to do it once, right? Because once they do the work, that'll just keep showing up in their budget. So I always like my folks to start thinking inside the fixed expense box. I think that's a place where a lot of people feel like, oh, well, I already made that decision. I have that bill. I can't do anything about that bill. Of course you can do something about that bill. And if you do something about that bill, it's actually going to pay off the most. So let's start there. And then, of course, there's a bunch of other strategies for other types of spending, but we can get into those.
So among these many aspects, emergency funding is so vital to financial stability. How does that factor in?
So I have a special way that I approach emergency funds. I know that the typical rules are you want to have 3 to 6 months of expenses. But when I'm working with my clients, I think of an emergency fund as, what would you be doing in an emergency? You probably aren't spending money in an emergency the same way you are in your normal day-to-day life. So we don't have to take the full panoply of your regular expenses and save 3 to 6 months of that. We need 3 to 6 months of emergency type spending. And that's a different number. And it's usually a number that feels much more approachable for my clients. And so when I show them that, now they feel like an emergency fund is something they can focus some attention on. And so I think it's important to, number one, ground yourself in what is the appropriate number for each client. Some of my clients run their own firms or have variable income. And so they need more of a cushion to feel comfortable that if something happened, they would be able to float themselves for longer. I have other clients that work for the government. It would take an act of Congress to get them fired. They feel pretty good about their life and about their emergency. They don't need as much of a cushion. So we have that conversation as well. But at a minimum, I like my clients actually for cash flow management, not necessarily emergency fund, but for cash flow management purposes, I like them to have at least a month of spending ready and available, because that will give them 30 days to figure out, some sort of different solution in case something goes wrong, in case a paycheck doesn't hit or an errant expense comes in that they weren't ready for. So this is the first line of defense that I teach my clients, and you would be amazed at how relieved they are once they have that money sitting ready and available. It really is this warm, fuzzy blanket that they get to walk around with all of the time, and it brings them so much comfort just knowing that it's there. And then the rest of the fund we can put somewhere, that's in a high yield savings account and earning a little bit of interest because they're probably never going to have to touch it. But having that 1 month just ready to go is so helpful for making the whole system run smoothly.
So beyond emergency planning, what are the other budgeting strategies and tools you recommend for your clients?
So we talked a little bit about separation. I am a huge separation fan. I think that, not necessarily, physical separation, but we at least have to have different buckets to give our mind the ease that, oh, there's money over there for this thing that we're saving up for, or this is just my money for this specific purpose. I think it's much easier to self-manage and to regulate when you can only see one thing. We get very distracted when we see all the monies. Believe me, it's very distracting. And so I use a lot of separation principles when I am building personalized cash management systems for my clients. And beyond the separation, like I said, I also teach cushions. I like my clients to have a certain amount of money in any active checking account. And yes, I do have my clients. They have more than one. So don't be scared. It's okay. It's really powerful work that we do together. But along those lines, zero is no longer the floor, people. Okay. We don't need zero to be the floor of your checking account. We don't, want to spend all the way down. There's no reason to ever overdraft. There's also no reason for you to be checking your account maniacally, wondering if a charge has gone through, if it's going to clear, if your paycheck cleared. That's not how we want to live our life. We want to have that cushion there for the ebbs and flows of how money comes in and goes out of our system over the course of the month. So between separation and cushions, those are two of the fundamental principles that I teach my clients with respect to budgeting and just managing the money coming in and going out. And once you have a little bit of that separation, the budgeting actually becomes so much easier because you know exactly what you're paying attention to and where you are over the course of the month. You've got your thumb on the pulse and you're doing a much better job of making intentional decisions.
So jumping into retirement planning, what steps do you suggest lawyers take when securing their financial future, especially with debt management and maybe when someone has started this process late?
As I've mentioned, I don't give investment advice. And I think there's a lot of investment advice and tax planning that goes into retirement planning. But so what I do with my clients with respect to retirement planning is most of the vision exercises. We want to get a sense of what you want retirement to look like in the future. What kind of life do you want to be living? What will your expenses potentially look like? We do a lot of work around figuring out what you will no longer be spending money on. For many of my clients, once you back out retirement savings, which they shouldn't be doing in retirement anymore, right? Maybe they own their home outright, so they no longer have a mortgage. They just have the property taxes and home repairs. And, they hopefully have paid off their student loans, right? There's a lot of financial obligations that fall off of the balance sheet by the time you get to retirement. And so your retirement planning strategies should be based on what your retirement spend will actually look like. And one of the things that I find so frustrating and that many of my clients come to me asking me questions about is I ran this retirement calculator that I found online and it told me that I needed $12 million to retire. Do you? Have you actually used real lifestyle examples of what you think you're going to be spending money on? Because that calculator may have taken your current income and just multiplied it by a certain factor to get to its number. And so retirement planning really should be very personalized. And the way that I approach it with my clients is very personalized. And then I pass them off to an investment advisor when they really have to start getting into choosing the right types of investments, choosing the right types of investment vehicles. I'm happy to educate my clients about what different products in terms of different retirement accounts and how they work, but I can't tell them which account is the right fit for them. That's really in the wheelhouse of registered investment advisors. And so many of my clients graduate on to work with investment advisors, and the conversations that they can now have with their investment advisors are so much richer because they know what they want out of their career. They know when they want to stop working. They know whether they want to slow down first and then stop working entirely, or just jump off a cliff and, retire early. And they have a sense of what they want retirement to look like and what they should prepare for. This is exactly what investment advisors would love for their clients to know, so that they can create really good strategies to achieve those goals. And for better or worse, most investment advisors don't do that kind of work. when they're putting the plans together. They have an idea of what retirement might look like for a typical attorney, and they just kind of slap that on there unless somebody asks for something different. And so it's really important to me that my clients have an idea in their own mind of what they would like retirement to be and what it might cost, so that they can then have that conversation with someone who can help them plan for it strategically.
Okay, so Jessica, can you share a success story where you coached a lawyer to improve their cash flow management or future financial planning?
A lot of my clients, when I first teach them my cash management system and some of the fundamental principles, their eyes light up. And oftentimes I'm told, well, this seems so obvious now, but I never would have thought of it on my own. So I'm really glad that we're talking about it, and I'm so excited to implement it. I get a lot of that. One of my favorite stories actually comes from one of my couples clients. I work with a lot of couples. As you can imagine, just the demographic of people that I work with, a lot of folks are married already. They might have a kid or two in their house. This is when people start thinking about making a career transition. So I have a fair number of couples clients on my roster. And oftentimes, one of them loves paying attention to the money and the other one couldn't care less. And that creates a lot of tension in a home where it feels like one person is bearing the burden of making all the financial decisions and knowing what's going on with the money. And the other person is just kind of flying by the seat of their pants, maybe has to ask permission. Can we afford this? Right? Nobody wants to be the money police in a house. That's just not a fun job to have. And so my goal, especially with my couples clients, is I'm going to teach them a way to manage their money where they now speak the same language. They're both going to learn a new system from scratch. They're both going to understand how the system works. They're both going to know the important points that they need to pay attention to. They're going to understand the data when they look at it. And they're going to be able to have productive conversations around their money for the first time. And I see that happening with my couples clients time and time again. But my favorite story comes from a couple. The wife was the attorney. She had originally reached out to me, and then I met her husband. He was not an attorney. I have many couples clients that are like this. And it's such a compliment when the partner who is not an attorney says, I don't sound like an attorney at all. It's like just the highest compliment ever. But she was really meticulous about her spreadsheets. She loved her spreadsheets, but spent all of her hours in them to the point where it was taking away from their marriage. And he was not really interested in money at all. He got very defensive whenever money came up. He felt like he didn't have a really great understanding of what was going on with their finances. And then also just felt like all the pressure was always just spend less or make more or there's not enough. And that can be really hard for some people to hear. And so once we put their system in place, they ended up switching roles. She gave up her spreadsheets, which was huge. All three of us recognized that it was huge. She gave up her spreadsheets. He made his own spreadsheet on top of the system that I had created for them because he wanted just a little more detail of what was going on. I mean, you should see her face. It was lit up when she was explaining what he had done. And now they have these very productive, loving, just caring and supportive money conversations on a regular basis. They are paying down their credit card debt at an aggressive clip. They're able to go to concerts and, really support activities that are important to them. And both of them know that they can do it because both of them know where they are finance-wise. And that is so powerful for couples who are just trying to have good conversations around money. And so this is some of the best work that I do with respect to cash flow management. It's actually taking away all of the barriers to good conversations for couples so they can finally speak from the same place, have the same information, and make good decisions and make those decisions together.
Sounds like you're saving relationships as well.
Oh, thank you, Matt. Yes, I try not. I don't position myself as a marriage counselor, but I'm thinking of connecting with marriage counselors so they can send their clients over to me when it's actually a financial issue that's causing the rift.
So as we wrap up, if we had one major takeaway, what would that be?
I think for cash flow management in particular, I want you to get down to your essentials. So think about what are the most important pieces in your money system and figure out a way where you can clear out all of the clutter and start paying attention to the key pieces of information. It's going to make all of your decision making a lot easier, and it's going to alleviate a lot of the stress that goes with trying to reinvent the wheel every single time you look at your numbers. So figure out what those key pieces are. If you need some help, reach out to me.
Fantastic point to wrap up on. Everybody, thanks for tuning in to Beyond Biglaw. For more insights and to connect with Jessica Medina, visit jessicamedinallc.com. jessicamedina.com. Also find her on social media. Jessica, thanks so much for your time today.
Thanks, Matt. This was fun.
Thanks for listening. If you liked this episode, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more amazing videos like this one.